Are we good?
It's just go scrolling through here, redirecting. We should be good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting of Wednesday, October 12th. I'd like to call this meeting to order by first doing a roll call. Councillor Clark?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Everhardis?
Present.
Councillor Hudson?
Present.
Councillor Smith?
Present.
CAO Martin?
Present?
And from staff, we have Brenda Reynolds.
Present.
Thank you. And tonight we will have a deputation from Joanna Park from Baker Tilly. Moving forward, I'd like an adoption of the agenda, please. May I have a motion?
Everhard is still moved.
Thank you very much. May I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Clark. I second that.
Thank you very much. I think I heard, can I hear Councillor Smith first?
Yes.
I will take Councillor Smith, yes. Any questions from the agenda? If not, any objection? Hearing none? Carried. Any disclosure of interest tonight?
None.
None.
I'm hearing none at the table. Thank you. So next we have approval of the minutes of the September 23rd, 2020 public meeting for planning purposes, pages 4 through 6. And we have the minutes of the September 23rd, 2020 regular council meeting, pages 7 through to 11. I can take it as one motion or I can take it separately. What are council's wishes?
Everhard is all move, as I was present for both.
Thank you very much. May I have a seconder, please?
Smith.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Any objections? Any questions or clarification required? I'm hearing none. Carried. Thank you very much. Next, we have deputations and presentations. 5.1, we have Joanna Park from Baker Tilly to present the financial statements and audit findings for the fiscal year 2019. So that's pages for everyone. It's pages 12 through to 117. So Joanna, thank you very much for meeting us here virtually at the Deseronto Council and taking the time to go over our draft financial statements for 2019. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to be here, and I don't know about you, but 2019 feels like a long time ago, doesn't it? 2020 has been going on way too long. Anyway, I will be happy to present. What I'm going to do is go through the PowerPoint presentation, which summarizes the financial statements as well as the letter that accompanies the financial statements. But of course, as always, I'm happy to address any questions from the statements or the letter, but this is kind of the highlights of both.
For fluidity's sake, would you prefer taking questions as they come up, or do you want to wait till the end?
Yeah, we might as well do them as you have them. So that would be great.
Okay, so if any council member, sorry?
No, go ahead, go ahead.
So if any council member has a question, we will try to get you in there. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you. Christine, are you putting it up on the screen or no? Just so I know.
I think everybody's got a copy they can look at.
Perfect. Nope, that's great. I I didn't want to wait for you if that's what you were doing. Okay, so on the second page is just a snippet of the independent auditor's report. So the auditor's report now is 2 pages long. And what you're really looking for is the second paragraph of the auditor's report. And we've taken it right here. In our opinion, the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the town of Deseronto at December 31st, 2019, and the results of its operations and cash flow. And they are in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. And that's what you as a municipality have to follow. So this is what you want to see. This is a clean auditor's opinion. The one thing I will highlight is the word consolidated. And that's because these are the financial statements for the town consolidated with the library and the cemetery, because ultimately council does control those. Then moving along, there's certain items that we're required to tell council as you're the one overseeing the main operations. So one of them is what we do as part of our audit. We review the minutes of council. We go through all the motions, making sure really anything that has any financial implications are reflected in the financial statements. We do substantive testing. So we do sampling, we look at analytical review, we look at any estimates by management to make sure that they're reasonable. And we do overall documentation and control testing on your main systems, being revenues, disbursements, payroll, journal entries. And then moving along to the next page, the audit is complete pending council's approval of the financial statements, the receipt of the signed representation letter, which we will get out after today if council approves the financial statements. And then on the presentation, we have the receipt of the legal letter, but I received that in my inbox this morning, so that is all good. We didn't have any difficulties encountered during the course of the audit, other than the usual that as expected. All the audit was done through virtually during COVID. So I think we had scheduled to do the audit right as COVID, maybe a week or two after March break. So we weren't on site at all for any of the audit, and we really need to thank staff for their cooperation. There was a lot of obviously different priorities at the time. So, and everyone just needed to be patient, and we got there, and we really appreciate all the effort for sure. So as I've noted here, no changes to the initial audit plan. Well, I guess I can't say that. We planned to be there, but we couldn't be. No disagreements or difficulties with management and staff, and excellent cooperation. We did put a note here just so, because it doesn't come up in the rest of the presentation, that there is a new subsequent event note for the impact of COVID-19 on your financial records. And basically, it's just a note there, just a reminder, COVID has happened in 2019, it's still on, or 2020, and it's still going on. And we don't know at this point what the implications will be to your future financial statements. So it's just an overall required note, basically, to say that. You do have one uncorrected audit difference, and it's just a liability overstatement. So there's $10,761 in your liabilities and your expenses that actually relate to the 2020 year. It has to do with the water treatment plant. And so it just means that those expenses won't be counted in 2020 because they were already counted in 2019. But the dollar amount wasn't big enough for us to restate or to change our opinion on the financial statements. It's still a clean opinion, even with that amount, but it is required to let council know. Then we get into the numbers of the financial statements. And in our slideshow, we kind of, instead of taking, one full page, which is a lot of numbers, we've taken in different snippets. So the first slide is the financial assets at December 31st. And we show the 5-year comparative, really focusing on the last couple, but it gives you an idea on the trends. So your cash and temporary investments have gone up nicely from 2018 to 2019, and they've actually gone up better than it shows here, because in 2018, you had a $350,000 overdraft, which we'll see on the liability side. So you actually had about an $850,000 swing in your financial or cash financial position. And that's a result of the 2018 grants receivable for the water treatment plant. You received those in 2019, which of course then helps your cash balance, as well as you received $280,000 from the province for modernization funding that you still had at the end of 2019. So it's sitting in your bank account, you put it in reserve, but it does help your cash position too at the end of the year. Your taxes receivable, you see the nice trend there, and a big decrease from 2018 to 2019. 2018, of course, you had a change of staff, so it was not a priority in 2018 to be following up on outstanding tax balances, and you can see the efforts made by staff in 2019 to do that. So there's still some work to be done, but definitely a good improvement over from 2018 to 2019. And then your accounts receivable, $1,045,000, big decrease from the year before. As I mentioned, you got a lot of your funding for the water treatment plant in 2019, but there's still amounts overall outstanding. And the other reason for the decrease there too is the HST, is you owed less HST because of course the projects, the capital activity near the end of 2019 was coming to an end. So overall, your financial assets at the end of 2019 were $2.1 million. And then the following slide just is the kind of the graphical representation for those people who like the pictures. You can kind of see the trends there, your receivables up and down. 2015, just so you know, as a marker, is when you were finishing off the wastewater treatment plant. And then of course, 2018, 2019, the water treatment plant. So you'll see some trends over the years when you look at the 5 years. And then the next slide is your financial liabilities at December 31st. As I said, the bank overdraft in the first line there, you see the $353,000 in 2018. Your accounts payable and accrued liabilities, Going down 2019 compared to 2018, you had more holdbacks for the project at the end of 2018. And a lot of those were released during 2019, so they're not sitting there at the end of the year. Your deferred revenue obligatory reserve funds, that's the amounts on hand that you have at the end of the year that you haven't spent for federal gas tax, your provincial gas tax, and your parkland and lot levy. So the biggest portion of that is your federal gas tax at $223,000. So that's the amount still on hand that hasn't been spent and can be used in future budgets. Your deferred revenue other, that is your grants that you've received that you haven't spent yet. So you'll see the decrease from 74,000 to 48,000, and that's because of the Main Street Revitalization program. That was money that was sitting there in 2018 that was spent during 2019. And then you have some other funding still left to be able to spend in the future years. Your long-term debt, you did receive or take an advance of $500,000 for the water treatment plant this year during 2019. And then that actually was debentured and finalized, as you know, in 2020. So that's why you'll see the increase there, but then of course a decrease with the payments during 2019. And then the liability for contaminated sites, no change there right now. There's been no change in the estimates, and that's something we will be discussing with management about the new requirements coming up in 2021, 22, I believe, for the asset retirement obligation. So we'll be chatting about that with contaminated sites. So in total, your financial liabilities are almost $3.5 million. And then of course, the next slide is your graphical representation of those amounts. The next slide is your non-financial assets. So the first line is your net financial assets, which is the assets that we just saw minus the financial assets minus the liabilities. You're sitting in a net debt position of $1.3 million. And of course, it would have increased because of the increase in the new debt. Then you have your non-financial assets, and these are assets that can't easily be converted into cash and that generally you're going to hold on to for longer periods of time, especially your tangible capital assets. So $22.4 million, and that's the historical cost of all your tangible capital assets minus the amortization over the years. So there's an increase there. In the year, you had $3.9 million in additions, most of it being the water treatment plant, but also the road construction on College Street. And then you had $1 million in amortization during the year. So that's why you see that nice increase year over year. And then a little bit of prepaid expenses to give you at the bottom there, that $21.1 million, that's your accumulated surplus, which we will see on the next slide. The next slide overall is a lot of numbers, and I realize that, but it's really just taking a synopsis of your total revenues, which you're going to see the detail on the next slides, minus your expenses to give you your PSAB annual surplus of $2.3 million if you look at the 2019 actual column. And that's, quite often we'll see the surplus there when you have years where you have large capital grants, because there's not the expenses to offset it like there would be in an operating grant where you have the revenue and the expenses and they basically go to zero. This is because it's capital, it's going to be expensed over the useful life of the water treatment plant. And then the bottom section of that slide is really just showing on your statement of operations, you're going to see that your budgeted is $2.7 million surplus. Well, I know council didn't approve a $2.7 million surplus. And what that column in the 2019 budget column is showing is that $2.7 million surplus and how it reconciles back to the zero surplus deficit that you would have budgeted. And it's because there's items that you would normally budget, which you should budget because you're doing it more on a cash basis, such as the purchase of tangible capital assets. So it's backing off those items and adding back items like proceeds of long-term debt that isn't a true PSAB revenue. So it's just a difference between the PSAB reporting items and how you budget. And I'm not saying at all that there's anything wrong in the way you're budgeting how you should be budgeting, because you have to budget to get the proper tax rates. It's just the difference between that and PSAB. So that's why we have that slide in there so that you can see the reconciliation. One thing that is noted on this slide in the middle column, second line from the bottom, is your town deficit. You did have a small deficit in the year of $17,240. The following slide shows the comparative between the net book value of capital assets and your accumulated surplus. So your accumulated surplus is $21.1 million, and that's the orange. And you'll see that all of that is your net book value of capital assets. So because of the debt associated with that, there is the differential there. And then the following slide shows the differences between your revenues and your expenses each year, and therefore the resulting surplus or deficit in one year the case. So of course, the years where there are large differences between your revenues and expenses, that would be expected when you have years of large capital grants. So 2015, like I mentioned, the wastewater treatment plant, and then 2018 and 2019 with the water treatment plant. Then we get into the revenues. In total, your revenues were $7.1 million. Going through, looking at the actuals versus the budget and the prior year numbers, your property taxation, very comparable to budget. Your user charges, $1.6 million. That's anything from rec facility, revenue, water and sewer, transit. Pretty comparable to budget. There was an issue in the budget with transit, and it was over budget on the revenue and the expenses side by $75,000. So when you take that $75,000 off, you're pretty much bang on budget there, which is pretty incredible when you're talking about such a large number. Your government grants, that's the CWWF funding for the water treatment plant, $964,000. You'll notice in the government grants and the provincial, the project wasn't completely finished at 2019, so the budget is actually a little bit higher because it was expected to be done. So that's why you see under budget there, recognizing the total spent to the total revenue. Your province of Ontario funding, that includes the modernization funding of $280,000, which was not budgeted for, as well as the OMPF of $720,000, and then the provincial water treatment plant of $964,000. So again, that was budgeted for higher, but because the project wasn't done, then it wasn't all recognized in 2019. But the modernization funding kind of, you don't notice that difference there because that was unexpected when you did your 2019 budget. Your other municipality revenue, $42,000, that's from for transit. Your penalties and interest on taxes, that's the downside with having a lower taxes receivable balance. The penalties and interest go down too, but that's okay. The other items there, your Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte revenue, that's again under budget because the project wasn't completed for the water treatment plant. Your federal gas tax earned, so that's the amount that was received and spent during the year, $209,000, and that was spent on College Street. Your provincial gas tax earned, that's the amount spent for transit, $202,000. And then the gain on disposal, that's just the difference between what you received when you sold some assets versus what was sitting on the books. And then your other revenue, that's the difference there from prior year is the modernization funding that was used during the year. So that gives you your total revenues of $7.1 million. And then the next slide is your pie chart, if you will, of where your revenues are coming in. And this year, with everything going on, 28.9% being from the province, 22% from user charges, and 20% from property taxation. So nice when it's you've got some other funding other than just property taxation. Then under expenses, under PSAB, we're required to show expenses two different ways. So this is the first way by department, if you will. So general government, you'll notice a big increase there from 2018 to 2019. And that's partially, not completely, but partially due to not having a full-time CAO in 2018. And also in 2019, there was some additional software support. The protection services line, that's policing, there was $30,000 increase in policing from 2018 to 2019 that was budgeted, but there was also some expenses in animal control and fire repairs and maintenance that were not budgeted for. There was under budgeted. Under transportation, there was an increase over prior years for roads material, and also amortization. There was more additions in your roads during the year, so amortization would go up during the year as well. And also in that line is the over budget of the transit, the $75,000, as I mentioned on the revenue side. It was also in the expense side. So there was no effect overall to your total surplus or deficit. Your environmental services, $1.7 million, an increase there just with the actual expenses for the water treatment operating expenses, as well as an increase in the long-term debt interest. Your health services, these categories are done FIR categories. So your health services is actually your cemetery. So that's the expenses of the cemetery. And then your rec, 724,000. There was a little bit over budget for the repairs and maintenance at the arena. And then planning and development, that's the expenses that were expended for the downtown revitalization grant. So the money, of course, we saw the revenue come in, then the expenses are in the planning and development line. So giving you total expenses of just under $4.8 million. And then the following slide just shows the breakdown of the expenses by department. And then the next slide shows that same almost $4.8 million in expenses by the type of expenses. So same numbers, just shown in a different way. Your salaries and benefits, as I mentioned, over prior year because of the CAO, as well as under budget there because of the transit. The 75,000 was in the salary and benefits line. Interest charges increase over prior year just with the advances for the prior to getting the debenture. Your materials, there were some under budget items in the fire repairs and maintenance. And then contracted services is where the software support over budget falls in line there. And then your rents and financial external transfers, very similar to budget in prior years. And then the amortization, that's something you don't budget for. We put in the budget, just the prior year numbers, but of course this year there's a variation because because of the new assets, there's more amortization in 2019. And then the following slide just shows again, the segmented information in the pie chart. The next slide shows the accumulated surplus. So this is the $21.1 million we saw in previous slides. The biggest number there, or portion of that then, is the invested in capital assets. So $19.7 million in that, with the increase in the net book value of the capital assets, but then also taking off the new long-term debt, the 500,000. There's still in that number two, 350,000 that's unfunded capital for the water treatment plant, but during the year there was 50,000 that was funded that had been previously set up as unfunded capital. And then we see the operating deficit of 156,000. I told you previously that it was 17,000, and that's the difference from 2018 to 2019. So this is an accumulated deficit, whereas your in-year deficit is just the difference between that 156,000 in 2019 and the 138,000 in 2018. And then you have your unfunded remediation costs that we saw on the liability side, 123,000. And then the accumulated surpluses in the library and the cemetery. And then in the reserve section, in total, about $1.5 million in reserves at the end of 2019. You have your working fund reserves of 680,000. Your future capital assets reserve, so it was used 100,000 for road capital during the year, but then that $280,000 that you received for the modernization funding, it's sitting there in the reserves as well. So there was kind of some pluses and minuses there, if you will. And then the water and sewer reserves, there was some reserve money used for the water treatment plant during the year too. So that's why the decrease there. And then the next slide just shows the kind of the graph or the trends of the reserves and reserve funds, and obviously going to be building them up and then using them in the future, which we can see especially for the water and sewer reserves over the years. The next slide just shows the tangible capital assets. I had mentioned the $3.9 million in additions. 3.2 million of that was the water and sewer system. And then the roadways there, almost 36,000, most of that was Charles Street. And then looking at the trends on the next slide between the amortization and then the capital asset additions, there you can see clearly 2015, the wastewater treatment plant, and then the water treatment plant over the years of 2018 and 2019. And this is a good slide. Now it's hard to see, of course, because you've got these major projects going on, but it's a good thing to look at on a snapshot is how much your additions are compared to your amortization, because of course your amortization is based on your historical costs. So you really want to watch that, generally over a period of time that you are investing in capital assets at a higher rate than your amortization, because then you can be, it just helps. And I know, easy for me to say, but it does help to avoid that infrastructure deficit that quite often gets talked about. The next slide is your tangible capital assets, the average useful life. So the green is how much life you have left in your assets, and the red is how much has already been amortized. One thing to note here, if you look at the far right, you'll see the water and sewer system. It says 66% has been amortized. What that is that most of that's your underground infrastructure, like pipes and various infrastructure. Your actual water treatment and your wastewater treatment plants are in the first two columns, your buildings and your machinery and equipment. So that's why there you're not seeing a lot amortized. So I just wanted to point that out because I kind of looked at it and thought, well, that's kind of confusing. So, and then items like your computer hardware and software, you would expect them to be, more amortized and more depreciated than the items that you're going to be holding on to for a lot longer, like your buildings and machinery and equipment. And then the next slide is your net financial asset trend. So this is looking at, again, your financial assets minus your liabilities, and you see the trend. And again, 2015, the new wastewater treatment plant at the time, and then kind of building up to a net debt position of 380,000, and then of course down again in 2019. And that's pretty common when you've got these big projects on the go. The following section of the presentation is meant to answer the question, how are we doing compared to other municipalities? We'd always been hesitant to answer that question, but what we've done is we've tried, and this is similar to what we've done in the past. So what we've tried to do is pick municipalities that are similar to yours. The difficulty is with your number of households and looking at your population, we try to pick municipalities that have water and wastewater systems, because we could compare you to, say, Tyendinaga, which is your neighbor, of course, but without the systems, you have different cost structures, of course, and different demands on your funds. So it's more relevant, even though the population and the households aren't the same, it's more relevant to be looking at a municipality that offers the same amount of services as you do. So that's why those are there. One thing I will note is, we are comparing 2018 information, because what we do is we take the information from the FIR website. It is public information. Full disclosure, all of these are our clients. We don't always use just our clients, but it is all public information. So it isn't from our audit files or anything like that. So looking at the first slide in this section is looking at your taxation. And right here, you can see, the discrepancy, of course, with your smaller tax base. Your overall regular taxation is going to be much lower than your comparatives that we've used. And looking at the amount of yellow that the municipalities have being the non-residential, which can make a big impact, especially when you're looking at collectability of taxes, the non-residential to the residential. So in the slides and the following ones, the first column on the left-hand side is your 2019 information. And then the following column is your 2018 information. And then the rest are the municipalities' 2018 information as well. We look at the next slide, looking at debt, municipal debt to net book value of TCA. Other than one municipality, everybody has debt. And you're right in there, 10.3% of your net book value over capital assets you have in debt. So I think that's pretty average when we look at the overall comparators on this one. Your taxes receivable to total taxes levied, you can see you're not the only ones, trying to make it to that even 15%. You're about 16% this year compared to almost 23% in 2018. So definitely good efforts there, but still some work to do to try to get it. The goal, of course, being 10%. And now that we're sitting in the middle of COVID, I know that's more difficult than it has been in the past. That's for sure. And then looking at taxation and user charges per household, when you look at just your 2018 information, of course, you're, a little higher, but not much higher than definitely other municipalities. And then your total PSAB expenses per household. Included in your PSAB expenses is your amortization. And this is why, you know, there's always stories behind all the municipalities and what's behind those numbers. So your amortization is higher because you have a lot of new assets. So you could be comparing to municipalities that don't have a lot of new assets, and therefore, you know, you're really comparing apples to oranges. And then the municipal debt per household, of course, lower number of households, it's going to be higher. And then your reserves and reserve funds to municipal expenses. So you've spent a lot of your reserve funds in the past just doing your water and wastewater treatment plants. So again, this is where the stories come in, you know, trying to compare one municipality to another. You don't know what they've done. Every slide has a different story. So, and then your salaries and benefits per household. And of course, running the water and wastewater, and then having a lower number of households is going to play into the results there. And then the salary and benefits to total expenses overall, though, you know, 30.7%, right in line with all the other municipalities. Are there any questions?
I have none.
Counselor.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Hudson.
Oh, well, okay, thank you. This has been a very comprehensive and very well put together presentation. I very much appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's hard without eye contact to see, you know, sometimes I have councils who, you know, kind of give me the motion, hurry up or slow down, or they're trying to figure something out. And it is hard without seeing everyone. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Joanne. I really don't see any red flags popping out here. It looks like that everything is in order as far as 2019 goes.
Yeah. Next year might be a little different. It's hard to say, isn't it?
2020 is going to be a fun reconciliation.
Yeah, I don't know if, yeah, the comparatives will be much different, I'm sure.
For sure. Does anybody else at the council table have any comment or question for Joanna? If not, I would thank you very much for your presentation, and I will ask council for a motion to receive.
Councillor Hudson.
I would make that motion.
Thank you very much. I'll take
Go ahead.
Councillor Hudson with a seconder by Councillor Park. Any questions? Hearing none? Carried. Well, thank you very much, Joanna.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yes, you too. Moving on, we have the variance report, which is 6.1, budget to actual as of October 8th, 2020, pages 118 through to 145. What are council's wishes?
I move to table to discuss.
Thank you very much. May I have a seconder, please? May I have a seconder, please, for discussion purposes on this?
Councillor Hudson.
Thank you very much. You have the floor, Deputy.
Thank you. Just through you, Mayor, to the CAO, just one quick question. One thing that stuck out was the $94,733 at transit for gas tax. Is that just we're awaiting the check?
Yes. Well, and the transfer, like it goes into the reserve, and then the amount that gets used gets transferred to that account as revenue.
Okay, so
yeah,
we'll be in line by the end of the year, most likely, though. Correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any further questions from anybody at the table? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
Everhard is so moved.
Thank you very much. May I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Any objection? I'm hearing none. Carried. Next, we have the schedule of accounts for amount of $172,562.28. What are council's wishes?
Everhard is so moved.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. May I have a seconder, please, for the schedule of accounts?
I would second that, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Park. Any objection? I'm hearing none. Carried. Moving on to staff reports, we're going to start with the CAO report 8.1. That's pages 150 through to 198. We can take this bit by bit, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the CAO to comment wherever she feels fit or feels that it's necessary. So first part of the report, actually, may I have a motion to get the report on the table, please?
Everhart is so
No.
moved.
Thank you very much. I'll take the motion from the deputy and a seconder by Councillor Hudson. Okay, so what we've got here, we've got the CAO. I'm going to take it section by section because there's multiple sections in there. So we have the OPP billing. Any questions with respect to the OPP billing?
Just one, Your Worship.
Yes.
Looking at it over the last 4 years and the projection for 2021 and 2020, this is going to be at the levels that we saw before the funding formula was changed and we received OPP relief. Has there been any accounting to why we've seen, 6.6, 6.1, and now 3.3? Like, is there any information available to us to understand where these numbers are coming from? I know there's, the predictions for service calls, but salaries and benefits must be huge here. Is there any other information that we can get to get our heads around this? Because my concern is we're moving back to that territory where we're going to be close to 500,000.
I think there's resources on the actual OPP site.
Okay.
I can also source out any specific questions with contacts I have specifically regarding billing. I would suggest that you can expect at least a cost of living increase on everything each year as we go.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think that's going to change. When I did this report, the 6 kind of took me aback. I thought that seems like a lot, but I didn't have the resources to dive deep into those. And
Yeah.
I suspect it may be call volumes because it is a 2-part billing, as you know.
Yeah.
There's the calls for service that plays into that. But I would expect to see, a 2% or a 2.5%.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, thank you, Christine.
Your Honor, could I just make a comment here?
Yes, sir.
Maybe it will help the deputy a little bit because I was the same about the costs. But if you remember several years ago, OPP brought their costs down, especially in Deseronto, and we were quite happy about that. But then after a while, the OPP Association and the government, through negotiations, the government gave the OPP a huge increase in their wages, and that basically brought the OPP almost up to what they were before they went down. So I think that's part of where the increase is coming from as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Christine, there seems to be a fair amount of interest here to dig a little deeper and get a little bit more clarification. Could you do that and provide something a little bit more substantial back to council?
Sure, I can take a look.
Thank you very much. Next piece of correspondence is just the attached advertisement for a fire chief has been posted internally. Any questions with respect to this? If not, we're moving on. If we're not, we're moving on to the Great Lakes funding. So what we've done here is we've attached a new funding opportunity for exploration purposes. I spoke to the CAO today about it. She's going to give a little bit of her insight on what she's found out so far. So I'm going to give the table over to the CAO for a moment, just to provide us all a little bit more backstory about the Great Lakes funding. Christine, you have the floor.
Okay, so I'm not sure if anybody read through the application guide that was included in the package. It's a lot of, but I included it because there's some things hidden in here that are going to make it difficult for us to apply. One being that we are required to have a community group attached to this. And I'm trying to figure out what a community group is associated with this. I reached out to the Conservation Authority because they as well have to use a community group. And the grant is for 50,000. So, you know, when the mayor, as the mayor suggested, when this was announced, it kind of brought back the oil grit separator idea, but that project was approximately $400,000. So I don't, you know, 50,000 is a help, but it's not enough of a help, I don't think, for us to tackle that project. The group that was involved with that was the Bay of Quinte Remedial Action Plan, BQRAP, but they're not considered a standalone organization and can't be a project partner to be eligible. So I'm not sure where to go with this, because I would have reached out to them to look for some ideas of maybe stuff we can do here within the $50,000 range. MBQ can be considered a partner, and that was, you know, that's something we can explore. I don't know what else to tell you about this. It's a little complicated one. It's not straightforward.
So, Christine, when I was reading through, it looked like, and then as far as community partners go, I think first and foremost, what we need to do is we need to seek further clarification of what qualifies as a community partner. Second, as far as affiliating with the MBQ, I believe that they are standalone, just like the municipality of Deseronto, and so they would have to require a community partner as well in order to qualify. So I'm not exactly sure if they would be a valid community partner based on the fact that they are listed as someone who's eligible to apply. So I'm not exactly sure. There were other ideas that we were thinking about, you know, to go in conjunction with our naturalization of our shoreline. We were looking at possibly, you know, I think we've all talked about it. I think it's all on our radar of expanding our waterfront trail. So really, I asked for this to come to council just to get the creative juices flowing, just to get, you know, to get us talking. You know, anytime there's an opportunity for funding, I think we'd be remiss not to explore it further. So with that being said, that's why it's here today. We have till November 6th to finish our application. So it's not like it's a do or die situation tonight, but I wanted to bring it to council's attention. I wanted to, you know, everyone to read it over, find out if they feel that there's any projects that they would like to see. I'd like to see the CAO get a little bit more confirmation of how we can legitimately apply and what a community partner is. With that being said, can I have a motion? Actually, I have a motion. Does anybody else at the table have any comments with respect to the Great Lakes funding?
Everhardis, I do.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm very much in support of maybe exploring this as an option to get that waterfront trail put through. I know Deseronto has a deficit of community organizations. We don't have very many service clubs besides the Legion. We don't have a lot of organized community groups that could help us here, because, you know, we're a small municipality, and, you know, organizations are far and few between. But anything that we could do to tack in education, watershed talk, naturalization, that stuff I think will stand us in good stead with this grant, because the idea, I think, is to you know, revitalize our Great Lakes, continue the good work that the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change and Conservation, the work that conservation authorities do. The Great Lakes are our #1 asset in Southern Ontario. The tourism dollars alone that these generate, it's phenomenal. Maybe having a discussion with the Deseronto Yacht Club, because I know that they would be a stakeholder that would be in good proximity to the Arctic Gardens and Mill Street properties. Maybe they would be someone to vouch and say, hey, this is a good idea, and we'll partner with you, because, you know, a clean waterfront does benefit the business the Yacht Club does. That's one maybe leverage group that we could approach. And those are my thoughts. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any comment or questions with respect to the Great Lakes funding as presented? I would suggest, if you do, I would actually ask, since we have some follow-up action with respects to this, I'd like to, we don't normally leave stuff on unfinished business, but I would like to leave this one on unfinished business with further comment at our I believe it's our October 24th? Actually, our next council meeting in October. That will give us a few weeks to prepare. if we were to go forward with an application. Do I need a motion to put that on unfinished business, Christine, or can we just leave it?
I can just leave it on unfinished business if you like. Well,
Yeah.
maybe it's better to have a motion.
May I please have a motion then to please put Great Lakes funding on unfinished business for further
Everhart
clarification?
is so moved.
Thank you very much. May I have a seconder, please?
I would second that.
Thank you very much. Any objection? Hearing none? Carried. Thank you very much. We're on to the next. And as it says right there, words of the CAO, I am pleased to say that a member of our volunteer fire department has agreed to take on the position of Community Emergency Management Coordinator for the town of Deseronto. This is excellent. This is a position that has been temporarily vacant and filled by the CAO in the interim. So this is just a little bit more information with respects to the appointment, as well as any associated costs. Any questions with respect to the CEMC position?
None here, sir.
I'm hearing none. Anybody else? Hearing none?
I'm excited it's getting filled.
Sorry, Councillor Hudson?
Oh, I said it. I'm excited it's getting filled.
Absolutely. And thank you very much to Mr. Brunton for his interest and dedication to our community. Next, we have the memorial tree planting. So there's a lot of information in here with respects to the memorial tree planting. In addition, there is a discussion with respects to the application fee and the associated costs therein. Is there any questions with respects to this correspondence here with respects to memorial tree planting, or any comment?
Everhart?
Yes, sir.
I think when this was originally developed, probably now 4 years ago, this is the first time it's actually acted on. So as with every project the town does, you learn something every time something goes on. Just a couple of questions that I have. In developing this plan to plant these 2 trees, was there a tree planting plan for either Centennial or Rathbun Parks and Covered? Because for planning purposes and recreational purposes, most municipalities have a bigger picture plan that they fill in. Do we have such a plan kicking around in Deseronto?
Through me to the chair?
Was that directed at me?
Yes, it is. I believe so.
This came about when I got an application in May. I had no idea that this program existed. I pulled out the policy, which is what you see in front of you. This is as much as I know. I've been scrambling to figure out how to make this work. And this is what has transpired. I had the Public Works look for a spot that made sense in Centennial Park for the trees that were requested. Actually, they requested specifically Centennial Park. And I think the policy says on town property. It doesn't say just on town property for approval by, whoever. So,
Councillor, through the chair, if I may, when there's an opportunity.
Go ahead now.
Okay, I looked through this and I think it's really wonderful, and I just wanted to throw out that the town of Smith Falls has done a similar project that might be kind of a good model, and I'm just really supportive of the project.
Thank you very much. Christine, you and I spoke briefly about this afternoon. Is there anything that you need from council tonight, or does the policy? I imagine it's something now that you've worked with it, now that you've felt it out, understand the needs more of our community and the intent of the policy. I imagine there's going to be some changes you're going to want to make. Is this one of those ones that you're going to spend some time with it and bring back to council, or do you need anything from us tonight?
well, I guess I was just looking for confirmation that council wishes to continue this. And if they wish to continue, the immediate concern is the cost that the town is outlaying for the trees over and above what we're collecting in the application fee. I believe there may have been a grant that covered some of this stuff before, but based on what just happened with the 2 trees, I think the application fee should at least be increased to $500. And we can I mean, if there's any suggestions on the changes that council would like to see in the policy, then I'd be happy to address that.
Your worship.
Yes.
Just on that, I think that's a good thing. This brings up a good point. Maybe we should temporarily put a pause on this until we get that policy up and running. And I think a couple of things that we could look at. We have to be kind of proactive where we put trees. If they're on public ground, if it's on the side of a road, for instance, there's sightline recommendations. Some municipalities have. Parks have recommendations. So maybe the first step is developing a plan for the areas where we want to see trees planted first. Then I think our next step is to put this fee on our fee bylaw and have it part of our regular annual review of fees. You know, I can see that there is some serious concerns. The costs quoted for these 2 trees were fairly astronomical by the nursery. So maybe, you know, making sure that it's cost recovery, that's a good thing. And I think too, though, for park trees, especially though, we have to figure out, okay, is there a part of our budget that goes to planting trees in the park? Because I know most of our park maintenance is just a set dollar amount, you know, maybe ensuring that, you know, we are moving forward with, you know, a little more diversity in what we're using our maintenance for. Just a quick walk through Centennial Park. There are some serious issues with some of our trees. Some of them are safety concerns, emerald ash borers in the area. There's ash trees on the waterfront. There's some work that needs to be done. So my maybe guidance here would be to put a pause, and luckily we're moving into the winter season, so we don't have to worry about this for another 5 months. The second step would be develop a plan for where we want to see trees immediately and what varieties of trees. So we match the tree to the donor, and then put the fee on the bylaw review so it gets added and is reviewed with the regular fee bylaws. So that's where I would want to go with this. Thank you.
Any other comments from anybody else at the table? So as far as getting this onto a fee bylaw, that makes complete sense. Obviously, it should be there. It should be reviewed on an annual basis because things go up, things go down. So to take a look at the fee bylaw makes complete sense. With respects to getting the comment to what trees go where and what are appropriate trees for this area, is this something that you'd be able to leverage through Quinte Conservation, Deputy Mayor, that assist us with, or how would we go to market?
In the winter months, I think I know someone on conservation who would give some guidance. I think there's some natural and easy ways. We have a nice row of maples starting at the playground that, you know, there are 5 or 6 trees there that could continue along the driveway, similar to what Kingston has done with Breakwater Park. There are certain trees that do very well by the shoreline. There are certain things that we could do quite quickly and easily to get this moving. I also know that in Rathbun Park, just to note, some of our trees there, particularly the Norway maples, have died off over the years and had to be removed. They may be an opportunity to reintroduce some new trees as well. So maybe looking at Rathbun and Centennial Parks, where trees have been in the past, might be a good start to continue along.
Okay, so we've had some good conversation. You brought up some good points. I'd like to leave staff with a little bit of direction. Obviously, we do want to move forward. So we've given direction to that we're going to revise the procedure. We're going to put this thing on our fee bylaw, and we're going to work on finding the best trees suited for this area. Correct?
I think so, Your Worship.
I'm going to ask for a motion for that, just simply so we have something.
Then I'll move that.
That's not within the report. Yes.
Then I'll move that, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. May I have a seconder, please, for that motion?
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Any further discussion or clarification of any of the motion required by anyone at the table, including staff? Hearing none. Carried. Thank you very much. Motion to approve the report.
Everhart is so moved.
Thank you very much. May I have a seconder, please, to approve the CAO report?
I would move.
Thank you very much. Any objection? Hearing none. Carried. Okay, so the next piece of correspondence is 8.2 Deseronto Community Center report. So this is a piece of correspondence that we've all been waiting to see. A lot of work has gone into this. A lot of comment is there, and we do have community lead hand Brenda Reynolds on hand if we have any specific questions. So the community center report is pages 199 through to 213. May I have a motion, please, to get on the table for discussion purposes.
Everhart is so moved.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. May I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. So just to give everyone a little bit of background, we have asked the we'd asked the lead hand and the CAO to put together a report for council with respects to potentially opening up the community center for the purpose of providing an ice surface for hockey related purposes this season. So in this report, it goes into detail with respects to safety conditions, protocols, what is going to be required from the arena staff to make the whole community safe and to make this thing a viable opportunity for us. It breaks down the fact that we have asked the Deseronto Minor Hockey, who would be the largest user of our ice time, to do a sampling of their 2020 potential users, and in good faith, the minor hockey did do that, and they came back with a potential commitment if the municipality does move forward with opening up the ice rink. In addition, I know that's the number one thing that I've been asked over the last 2 months, and we get a lot of calls in the town hall, is by other user groups and organizations looking for ice time in our municipality. I believe that the staff has done a very good job putting together a report for our consideration. And with that being said, I'm going to hand the table over to the Deputy Mayor, who made the motion to get this on the table for discussion purposes. Deputy Mayor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Brenda, for joining us tonight. Thank you for your hard work on putting this together. It's fairly comprehensive, and I appreciate the information. I also want to extend thanks to Deseronto Minor Hockey, who put out a lot of information. 76 players from Deseronto, MBQ, Tyndonega, and other area municipalities. I like the looks of that cluster. It looks incredibly safe. I want to also thank the other stakeholders, the recreational teams, Quinte AAA and Napanee Minor Hockey, who are all interested in renting the ice. I am, glad that we are having this conversation. We have learned a lot about COVID-19 this last 6 months, and we have saw that recently that Toronto and Peel, we know that now arenas will be in stage 2 closing. So we have to consider our options really, really carefully here. I'm pleased to see the extra effort with cleaning supplies, Brenda. You have done a fantastic job in enumerating what we need to keep the arena clean. And I am very pleased with your honest account of the staffing. I think that's really important, that we are paying attention to the amount of staff we have available, especially with COVID-19 and the potential for staff being symptomatic, but not with it, but can't working. So I think that's important. You've got some good protocols put in place. I do have a couple of questions and concerns. My first question, Brenda, is in regards to public skating. One thing that I have always focused on with the community center is that it's more than just a hockey rink. It is a community center. And I'm wondering, what can we do to facilitate some form of public free skating this year? I see that we're facilitating things like pickup hockey. Why can't we continue to offer this program to our residents at this time? What do we need to help you guys to do that for us?
Basically right now, the thing is, it's hard to man who's coming in for public skating because everybody just shows up in big clusters. Making sure everybody can sign in and keeping our numbers limited to what we're allowed to have. Like I said, if we have like 100 people want to show up for public skating, we have to turn away half of those people because they can't come in the building. So, and there's not a lot of other facilities that are having public skating right now. They've kind of kiboshed it for the season for that reason. And also, trying to make sure that everybody keeps their masks on or socially distanced on the ice. isn't going to be easy either. So,
I hear those concerns, but
yeah.
my concern is hockey's a contact sport, and the social distance will not be there. Hockey players don't wear masks. So with the COVID-19 things, I am a little bit concerned. Is there a way that we can come up with a pre-booking? I know that there are some services the municipality has that allows registration and booking online, like a Google form where we can keep track of that information. And once our limit is reached, we close the doors to that. I'm concerned that, looking at the data here, this has to remain a community center, just not a hockey center. And I'm hoping that there's a way we can work around to come up with a way to keep the public engaged with our facility, whether or not they play hockey.
Yep. I guess we can look into something like that and see what we can do for having people pre-book kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
So if anybody can pre-book the week before, so we know what we're looking at for numbers for coming in and making sure everybody's properly registered to come into the building, would probably be the best bet.
I think a pre-booking system, and then once you get to a certain number, you can post on your Facebook account. The town hall can pick it up, and we can sort of go from there. I think that might be a good way to keep people engaged. So that makes me happy. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Hudson, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
And to speak to the point that we're just talking about, I think that the recreation and culture events, right, and different social media platforms, as well as the ways that the committee are reaching out, I think that would really benefit in what we're talking about with the free skate for community programs.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor, you said you had 2 more points?
Yeah. I noticed that some arenas, and from talking to people in the hockey community that are up and running, have been pretty restrictive about dressing rooms and showers. And our policy looks a little more permissive of using those facilities. Frankly, I've seen kids and adults changing in the parking lots in order to promote social distancing at this point. Now, I believe that will eventually become very, very unpopular in about a month's time. Keeping that in mind and keeping cleanliness in mind, what kind of controls will you develop in order to really, because you got some policies here, but I think you're going to need some more controls to keep people like staggered. And there's no break in the schedule for entry and exit. And I know some arenas have built in 15 minutes in between ice rentals, and no, it's additional cost, but it does provide that staggered approach where teams aren't crossing each other as they enter and leave.
I believe we have that provision in there, but Brenda?
Yeah, actually, we kind of have it lucky with our setup in the arena that when they do enter, the first group would go to room 1, 2, and the referee's room. So once they're in there, there's no way of them to cross paths when the other group is coming in, because it'll be 15 minutes before they even get off the ice. So by that time, they'll be in their change rooms before they even start coming out of the facility. So
what you're saying is we're going to have fairly strict entering times. Your ice time starts at 8 o'clock. So be there at 8:45 to be dressing.
Exactly. We will have one staff member come to the front door to let in the hockey team. And before they're allowed to come in, we will be given a list of who's playing at that time. So we know who's coming into the building, and we'll keep that on file for a month.
And do you have those rosters ready to go, or are they going to be developed in between the time that we have between we open?
So each ice group will have to have their own screening protocols. They'll have to get the lists of all their contacts, their players and stuff, and that will be given to us from the person that's running the teams, basically.
Great. So if someone is added to a group or leaves a group, that will be updated periodically as well?
Yeah. Yes. Every week when they come in before basically the day of their ice time, they would have to get me a copy of who's coming for that night, so we know exactly who's coming and going.
Sweet. And maybe if I can offer a suggestion to limit you guys in contact,
Yep.
maybe it's an email to you folks.
Yep.
Everything in my sector is now going digital. Maybe it's an email to you folks with that information, so you're good to go.
Yep, definitely.
And then my final question, Brenda, is we are now in a really strange 2-week waiting period. The data shows that in Ontario, after a long weekend, within 10 to 14 days, we have a spike in COVID-19 cases. And we know that right now our testing it has not been consistent. There has been some dragging times, processing times. So the numbers aren't showing that perfect trend of where we're going. You say you need 3 weeks to go to get the ice from giving you the green light to when we can have skating in, right?
It's a 3 weeks minimum before, because basically by the time I notify refrigeration, they need at least a couple weeks to be able to get in here and get the rink turned on.
Yep.
And then by that time, I still have to line up our painters to come in. So it's everything has to fall into place. So the least amount of time it would take me is 3 weeks.
So 4 weeks might be even better for you to get everything organized.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. By the
okay.
time I get staffing in here and train them on all the new protocols and cleaning procedures and everything, it'll take a little more time.
Okay. And one last question, Mayor, if you'll indulge me. It looks right now that we have some pretty good, solid booking blocks on evenings. The weekends look fairly, the mornings on Saturday look good, and a couple hours on Sunday. Is there any way that because of COVID, and I know it might sound a little counterintuitive because I just said we needed space in between, whether we maybe to facilitate, less stress on staff, consolidate, one of our weekend days, and then just build out our schedule based on that, because it looks like, from 6 to 10 on weekdays, you're good. A little extra time on Friday. There's a dangling hour at 2 in the afternoon on Friday. Is there a way maybe we can consolidate that Sunday and Saturday schedule so you get Sunday off, for instance, for deep cleaning or whatever you need? Because, I know that you guys will be working your guts out trying to get this going and providing all this service, looking out for your interest and your health as well as good employees for our community. Is there a way that we can make the schedule even just a little more tighter so we maybe don't have a Sunday? It's cleaning day, it's maintenance day, it's just tightening up those hours. So you can staff the place easier, and B, it's more efficient with your time.
That's an excellent point. Brenda, do you have any comment on that, or is that something you'd like to look into? It's a great point. If we could take any additional time and consolidate, that'd be great.
It's something I'd like to look into, because as of right now, I know I have at least 20 people on another list waiting for ice.
Okay.
Oh.
So there's a possibility of me filling those spots.
Okay.
I didn't want to give them definitive bookings until I knew what was going on. So everybody here is just waiting to hear back from me, kind of thing. And if I don't get those bookings, then it would make sense just to, shut down and do a full clean day kind of thing. But I guess I can feel it out and give some phone calls out to these people and see what they think.
Awesome. I'm happy you're, Mayor, thank you so much, Brenda, for answering those questions so well.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anybody else at the table have any comments or questions with respect to the report before I go any further?
I would just like to say, Your Honour, that I think Brenda and her staff are doing a good job at the arena. It's an important building for us, and I'm glad that she's keeping it open and things are happening there rather than the doors being closed and not being used.
Thank you very much, sir. Anybody else have any further comment?
I second Norm.
Very nice.
Thank you.
I'm hearing council might be interested in putting together a motion.
Your worship?
Yes.
I have a motion that can be debated. It has 4 clauses. I'll read them very carefully. That council authorizes staff to prepare for November 14th opening date. That's the Saturday in November after Remembrance Day. So that'll give you about 4.5 weeks to prepare, Brenda.
Okay.
Clause 2, that staff adhere to the hiring, staff advertise and hire casual employees as per the human resources policy. So that will authorize you to hire the staff needed. And, I think tonight, Brenda, if you get a couple extra casuals that you can call in, I think you won't have any opposition for us. We know COVID requires additional manpower or human resources power. 2, that staff come up with a plan to accommodate public skating as per the public skating bylaw. And then council be provided with data to conduct monthly reviews to ensure that the facility is being used as predicted.
Well, that's the motion. Can I have a seconder, please? Get the motion on table for further discussion.
Councillor Hudson.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hudson. Okay, so we have a motion. The motion puts it at November 14th, Saturday, November 14th for an opening, based on the report that's been given by the community-centered lead hand. There are a few spots in there with respects to using. There's a few caveats with respects to just adhering to policy. I do think that what is going to be key to this is we're going to need to do a review to make sure that the user groups that are committing are going to stay committed, and that we watch and ensure those numbers stay true to what we are anticipating. So with that being said, yes.
And also provincial guidelines as necessary.
Absolutely. So as a council, we've abided by all provincial guidelines. We're currently under a state of emergency linked to the provincial government state of emergency. So we have no issues if necessary, if provincial guidance or health or health unit guidance tells us that we have to curb the way we're doing business, we will definitely oblige. So with that being said, I have a mover and a seconder. Is there any further discussion required before I call all in favor?
Your worship, if I may clarify,
Yes.
the November 14th date was selected, I think. I think some of us will have concerns with the COVID numbers after the Thanksgiving weekend. From just anecdotal conversation, most people observe the provincial guidelines and cut down their Thanksgiving celebrations, but there are still cases where that did not happen. That gives us 2 council meetings to say, hey, look, things are looking good or things are getting scary. It gives 4 weeks for the provincial government to move Hastings, Prince Edward into a level 2 or level 1. So I think it gives us enough time to give our staff the ability to hire, prepare the rink, get all the stuff in place, and it then gives us the ways to allay any concerns of the community. Also, just one last quick question, Brenda, because of Toronto and Peel and Ottawa being closed down, I know that there is some rumor that some small town rinks are going to get pressure from outside groups to accommodate. And you know how hockey people are. They will be willing to drive. Do you think our policies in this guideline prevent us from exposing our local people in our area to folks from outside? So this pretty much clamps down all travel in hockey to begin with, correct?
Yeah, I don't think it should be too much of a problem here. Anybody that's called me has been pretty local, like Napanee, where else? Tyndonega. It's been pretty local that have been calling for ice time here. There's nobody from out of past Belleville region or anywhere else like that. So
awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Fair to say all the interest, Brenda, is within our current region, correct?
Pardon me, sorry.
So all the interest is definitely within our current region.
Oh yeah, absolutely. With Napanee having all these bookings, they got overflow of more of their Napanee groups not getting enough ice time. So I know a bunch of people, parents independently, are renting ice for their kids to get the extra ice time that they're not able to get in Napanee. So that's what a good portion of it is. And
Perfect.
as well, on top of that as well, we've got men's groups that would have played, local men from the area that would have played in Belleville in leagues, but they can't play leagues anymore. So they just want to get 2 men's groups kind of teams going and play pickup every week with the same guys, as opposed to playing in their loops in Belleville and such.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Brenda. Really appreciate that.
You're
Thank you very much
welcome.
for the report to council tonight. So I have a motion on the table right now. We've discussed it. We've debated it. Any objection? I'm hearing none. Carried. Thank you very much. Next piece of correspondence we have is 9.1 Quinte Conservation Authority, pages 214 to 223. What are council's wishes?
I move we receive.
Thank you very
Everhart.
much. May I have a seconder for the June minute to receive the June minutes, please?
Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Any objection? Hearing none. Carried. Nothing in action items. We're moving on to information items. Items requiring no action. 11.1 through to 11.12. I can take it as one, or we can take it individually, or we can pull one out. What are council's wishes? I will take it all as one motion.
Councillor Hudson, I move to receive them all as one motion, unless other conversation arises.
Thank you very much. I'll take that. Do I have a seconder, please, to receive it from 11.1 through to 11.12?
Everhart, a second.
Thank you very much. I'll take the deputy mayor. Any further questions or comments on anything within there? Hearing none. Carried. No new business, no notices of motion. Announcements. 14, going around the table. We'll start with Councillor Clark.
Nothing really to say, Your Honour, apart from that I'm really glad to hear all your voices again, and I'm in a position that I can hear them. And I appreciate, I've said it before, and I continue to say it, I appreciate what this council, yourself and our CEO and all our staff do for this town. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I can tell you on behalf of council, I'm sure you're going to hear it when we go around the table. We're very happy to have you back too.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
I have no announcements, but I would just like to welcome Councillor Clark back.
Thank you very much, sir. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank everyone in Deseronto for observing a very quiet Thanksgiving. Just walking around the town on both Sunday and Monday, people's driveways were empty. People were following the guidelines, and people were making a real effort to be safe over the holidays. So I understand it's difficult and stressful for a lot of families that haven't been together for a while, and I want to thank everyone for doing their part. I also want to extend my warmest wishes and glad tidings that Norm is back. Councillor Clark, you have been missed. And over the past week, I have found a bag of horrendously flavored British licorice things that I know you like. And the next time I see you, I'll be putting those in your paws. So continue your recovery, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Hudson.
I will agree with the sentiments of council. We're glad to have you back, Norm, and healthy and happy. Your voice is a very welcome contribution, as always. I also want to acknowledge International Day of the Girl that happened this week, October 11th. As usual, Girl Guides a big part of our community, and so we want to just acknowledge that as far as I'm concerned. And other than that, always glad to be a part of what's going on tonight.
Thank you very much. And we're moving on to bylaws. We have 15.1. We have bylaw number 57-20 being a bylaw to appoint a chief building official pursuant to the provisions of the Building Code Act 1992. And that's page 286. Deputy Mayor, would you like to read the bylaws tonight?
Thank you, sir. The bylaw number 5720 being a bylaw to appoint a chief building inspector pursuant to the provisions of the Building Code Statutes of Ontario 1992, Section 23 as amended. And I move that that bylaw be read a first, second, and third time. And welcome aboard, Don Reed.
Thank you very much. May I have a seconder, please?
I would second that, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, sir. Any objections? I'm hearing none. Carried. 15.2, a very similar bylaw. 58.20, being a bylaw to appoint a building inspector pursuant to the provisions of the Building Code Act 1992.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that that bylaw be read a first, second, and third time. And welcome aboard, Mr. Cook.
May I have a seconder, please?
I would second that, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Any objections from anyone?
Nope.
Hearing none. Carried. 15.3, bylaw number 59-20, being a bylaw to appoint a community emergency management coordinator for the town of Deseronto.
I will read that bylaw and move that it be read first, second, and third time and approved today.
Thank you very much. May I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Smith?
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Any objections? Hearing none. Carried. Once again, thank you to Mr. Brun. We have no closed session today, so we are moving on to 17.1, which is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, 60-20.
I move that bylaw be read a first and second, third time and come into force this day, the 14th of October, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. May I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Smith?
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Any objections? I'm hearing none. Carried. And lastly, we have adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Councillor Hudson?
Thank you very much, Councillor Hudson. I will take it. And I'll take a seconder from Councillor Smith.
Yes.
Any objections? I'm hearing none. Carried. Thank you very much to council. Thank you very much to the community for participating in tonight's meeting. And thank you very much for staff for all their hard work. And have everyone a great night.
Thank you. Thank you.